Welcome to Play Beautiful. This is Kerry Castillo. I'm the founder of Play Beautiful. Play Beautiful is a coach-inspired company that seeks to empower and impact coaches so that we can be more impactful for the people that we lead and love. I am joined this week by my best friend and former coach and my biggest cheerleader, a former coach of over 20 years, by the way, and coincidentally a cheerleading coach, Candace Castillo. And we are doing the most coach couple thing that you could think of, and that is having a conversation the only time we get to, which is
in the car.
In the car on the way somewhere for Thanksgiving, for a holiday. If you're a coach, you know this feeling in this situation and scenario all too well. That's the only time you get to talk to each other. How many other coaches? I'd love to get an email. play.beautiful.us@gmail.com. If you're a coach and the only time you and your wife or husband get to talk is if you sneak a trip into Walmart or just make up trips to the gas station or to Sonic. I want an email. I want to hear about that. I want to hear other people.
Just go for a drive.
We're going to go, quote unquote, go for a drive, because you don't get to talk to each other. But our topic this week is not just, that could be a whole other show, honestly. It could be coaches and their spouses and their excuses to go have conversations with each other. But our topic this week is a big one for coaches, and it is getting parents to buy into you and your program through the culture that you build with their child and with them. And I'm going to let Candace talk more about that and really fill in the gaps that I left there.
Yeah, so I think it's really important for your culture to set the tone for your parents. Today I think we're going to talk about three different topics on that. The first one is communicate, and by that we mean over communicate. The second one is incorporating that culture into everything you do as a team, and with your parents and with your social media and everything. And then the last piece is buy-in.
So I want you to know that this is probably the most organic podcast that you could perhaps ever listen to, because we're co-hosted by Siri, who's giving us directions, and by the sneezing children in the back seat. So all of the things, we really wanted this to encompass all that it is to be a coaching couple.
We want to be real.
Okay, this is so real, overly real. Okay, but let's start with that first point, and I'm going to let Candace talk a lot about her experiences as a coach of more than 20 years and some of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to what relationships and rapport with sport parents are like, and how over-communication can help and even alleviate some of that. So, Candace, talk about because you were great at this when you were coaching. You were great at the communication piece and how you basically told the story of what the team was doing and really filled the parents in on that. So just talk to us about that.
So I think over communication is one of your biggest tools, as a coach, because the more you tell a parent up front, or even the athlete up front, the less chance there is for some sort of issue later on, whether it be like a discipline issue, whether it be just a miscommunication, things like that. I think the more you tell them up front and just really lay it out, and that really includes, I know you and I both, we do contracts, and we have, signed contracts, and that tells the, parents and athletes up front that this is this is the way we're going to run our program.
Right.
And you're agreeing to that by signing on.
Mm-hmm.
And so communicating up front, having those meetings regular to tell them this is how much it costs. This is what you're going to be expected to do. These are all the details up front are very important. But for me, I think my biggest communication tool was I, every Sunday, would do a message out to my parents and my athletes with every single detail. And for cheerleading, this is a whole different realm than most sports, because we're cheering at multiple different games. Sometimes we're between football and basketball season, and so there's multiple different events happening, or we're having to go to a community event. And so if I tell those parents on Sunday night what's going on, and they know for the whole week which uniform they need for which event and what all they should be wearing, especially for those younger athletes, like if you're coaching a junior high team and parents have to do more for their kids at that point, just knowing, okay, these are the things I need to have ready for this week. It helps those parents so much, and then they don't have to feel so rushed in the morning going to school or the night before a game. And honestly, I don't know about you. I know that we, when we're rushed around in the morning or the night before,
it's chaos.
It's chaos.
Mass chaos.
And it makes things more frustrating, and it makes, it makes maybe makes you raise your voice to your kiddos. And so if we can negate that with parents for our teams, then I think that is one of the best tools that we have.
I think that's a great point, though, and I'd like to remove the context of age and sport and really take what you said there, not just over-communicate, but I really want to drill down on a couple of the really specific things you said there, and that was what I heard you saying is communicate the locations, exactly what the expectations were, and not just for the athlete, but for the parent, and all of the moving pieces that's going to encompass. I think that's something that every coach could learn from, regardless of whether you coach cheer or not, and regardless of whether you have a sport that involves multiple uniforms or equipment. Those kinds of things don't matter.
Yeah.
There are a million moving pieces to every sport,
yeah.
Right?
Well, and you and I, we lived in the world of 40 to 60 athletes.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. That's a lot to keep up with, especially
when your ratio is one coach to 40 or 60.
Right.
It is
a lot
to keep up with. I know a lot of you might have teams of over 100, but you might also have larger staffs.
Right.
And so that when you're talking about a ratio of 1 to 30 or 1 to 40 or 1 to 60 even, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, and so just being able to put all that information out there for parents, for athletes, for all of the things that are expected, it also it takes away some of that text late at night or, like all of those things. And so one thing I like to tell my team is ask 3 before me.
Yeah.
And so having that communication out there and then telling them, okay, your first thing to do is you're going to go and look at at what I posted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the next thing is you ask 3 people on your team whether or not they know the answer to your question. And if they can't get you the answer, then I haven't done my job well. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so then you can come ask me.
I think this is really important, a really important place for coaches to pause for a second and reflect, and maybe even pause the podcast and back that up and listen to it one more time. But here's a thought I want you to take with you if you choose to do that, or if you're going to chew on this idea for a minute. And here's what I'd love for you to consider. No one, I'm going to repeat that, no one is going to read your post all the way through the first time.
Nope.
We don't live in that world anymore, right? So you have to have the expectation, and you have to set the expectation verbally and in writing that the information they need is within what you send them, so that they don't have a choice. You have to eliminate the choice of whether
Reaching
to read
out.
it or not, right? And if you're going to post it, then it's got to be important. How important? As important as packing your cleats, as important as taking a football helmet to a football game. That's how important. And so you have to reiterate that before you send out this novel on Sunday night that you're going to send out, or whatever night it may be.
Well, and that's good too, because you're mentioning these things that seem so minute, right? But how important that is for a team. Like, if you don't show up with your football helmet, you don't get to play. And, I mean, there's not a lot of extras. And it's the same in cheer. Like, if you don't show up with something, and that's something you have to communicate in the beginning too. Like, this is the expectation. And if you don't show up, then you're going to sit out.
Right.
If you don't show up prepared, you're going to sit out.
All right, coaches, so I gave you a moment there to pause, and I asked you a couple of questions. That's my favorite thing, is to ask harder questions of ourselves. So I gave you a couple things to chew on there and reflect on. And so I want to bring the conversation right back to communication. But Candace has got a couple of strategies for how to better present your communication when you're trying to disseminate information. And these strategies are going to help ensure that your athletes are in fact reading or paying attention to and absorbing that information. So Candace, go ahead and fill us in there. What are the strategies that you have that help ensure this information is absorbed better?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest things that I've learned in my last few years of coaching is make it digital and make it clean. One thing that I started doing a few years ago is I was using Canva actually as my weekly like send out. No matter what platform you put it on, you could put a photo on it. And so using Canva and breaking it down by days of the week on Canva, it made it so nice because my parents and my athletes could screenshot it and have it on their phone. And so rather than using a platform like, I don't know, Remind or Band or something like that, and just typing out how the week goes, I would have a one-pager that had everything on it, nice and clean, very easy to find the information for each day. And my parents were so grateful for that, because they would save that in their camera roll each week, and they could access it super quick and figure out where they need to be, where they needed to have their children. Even the older athletes, they could do the same thing. They could favorite it for the week, and it's easy, accessible. And I think that was kind of a game changer, because like you said, they're not going to read it all the first time. And so if it's saved right there in their pictures and they're at a moment where they can actually look at it, they'll go back to it.
Yeah, this goes back to culture. I know we're talking about maybe a social media post or a communication post, but it still goes back to culture. Are you meeting your athletes, your parents, the people you lead? Are you meeting them where they are? And so this is a manner of doing that. Even though it's just a simple communication tool or a simple post, it doesn't matter. You're speaking their language, and you're making it easy for them to not only access, but to find, to Rolodex through, to age myself there, but to find that information later in the week when the things of life begin to creep in and make everything chaotic again. You've simplified the access to your program's information, and that's streamlining your work.
Right.
Yeah. So what else did you do to communicate not just the logistics?
Well, can we back up for just a second?
For sure.
Because I I know that, a lot of coaches are like, well, I don't have time to make a Canva for every week, and I don't have time to, and so I wanted to say the way that I did it is I just kept one document, and I continued to add to it at the top. And so all I had to do was copy and paste and change. It was never a huge task. It was just a copy and paste and change. And so just finding those tools that can help save time but still speak their language, I think, is very important as well.
Yeah, and coaches, get familiar with AI. It'll make your life so much easier. So there are 1,000,001 points we could make when it comes to communication, but we want to hit the biggies here. And so you've got your weekly message that goes out as a communication of day by day, your microcycle, if you will, for my S&C people out there. The other big piece of communication, that's going to be your overall big picture, your preseason / pre-tryout parent meeting. This is where most parents that come into your program and athletes, it might be the first time they're actually meeting you. And you need to nail this. If there's something you want to leave people with about your program, here's your chance. Swing away. And so I'm going to let Candace talk a little bit about things that she ensured, that she incorporated into her pre-tryout / preseason meetings. And then we'll just continue that conversation. So Candace, what are the things you feel like you always had to nail?
Yeah, so for cheer, it's real important to nail a couple things. One is, how much time am I committing? How much is it going to cost? And what all am I going to need to get on my own? Right?
That's big. That's with, you could apply that to every sport.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the world we live in now, right? It's not as simple as coach is going to hand me a jersey and it's time to play.
Right.
There are so many additional things. Yeah.
Yes, and in cheerleading, there's lots of accessories, right?
So many bows.
So many accessories.
So many bows.
But also in cheerleading, there's it's not just cheering for a game or cheering for basketball season or football season or whatever, but there's also the side of competition. And so the other big thing I had to hit was how we decide who's on competition squad and whether there's any wiggle room in that. So are they on mat?
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. Go ahead and define those levels. That's what I was going to ask you to do, is define those levels.
Yeah, see, so that's the thing, is that it's going to be different with different programs. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is that you do define it for your parents. So make sure going in, they know exactly what the expectation is, how you're going to decide that, how you're going to announce it, and whether it's going to change or fluctuate.
Yeah, and this is applicable to every sport.
Yeah.
To every sport. Your on mat might be varsity.
Right.
And that your varsity is going to apply to any and every high school sport. There's going to be a high varsity. There's going to be a junior varsity. Might even be a freshman team or whatever you might call it. The vernacular might be a little bit different, but the levels remain the same. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, and a lot of coaches are going to get turned off to this, but we do owe it to them to define that. And let me tell you why that's important, okay? Because, shocker, spoiler, most parents, I'll go ahead and say most, I'll be fair, most parents cannot discern the actual level of skill of their own child. And so when they look at the ability of their child, there's a bias. We don't have the same bias for their child because it's not our kid. And so we have to define that for them. And let me tell you, it's going to make your life easier.
So much easier.
If that is clearly defined, because with each definition of on mat or varsity, regardless of what it is, there are metrics. There are metrics that have to be met of effort, time intensity, skill level. We could go on and on. And for parents, you can't leave anything up to subjectivity, or they will take off running with it.
And that's the thing. So you say metrics, it's going to be different depending on the program.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
you know, I've coached cheerleading at multiple different schools and multiple different districts. And so the metrics are going to be different at each place because of outside things. Like there's, you know, maybe in one area, accessibility to like competitive cheer gyms or gymnastics facilities or even the poverty level. You know what I mean? Like what is your demographic at your school? Yeah. And so those metrics are going to be different depending on where you're at. And so it's not as much about the actual metrics as it is about defining those in the beginning for your parents.
And I just want to interject really quick. And I know that sounded like I was demonizing parents. That's not the case at all. It's just natural. It's natural for parents to want to help and to advocate for their kid. And this is what I want to interject with. I just had to preface. We have to let them know that we are doing this together. That is probably the biggest thing you have to get across to parents, is that we are a team. I have your child's best interest in mind, but at the end of the day, the program, the outcome of the competitions, okay, when it comes to the highest levels of your program, the outcome is, it has to be prioritized. Does it have to be prioritized over them as a person? No.
But doesn't have to be prioritized over the relationships either.
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean?
Great point.
I think that's the big thing too, is like your parents need to know that you love that you love their kids.
1,000%.
You know what I mean? And so it doesn't matter if their kid is the best tumbler or the best, I don't know what position on the team. You know what I mean? Any position on the team. It doesn't matter because you love every one of those kids and you want them to be their best. And so
so here's another thing that needs to be defined. Not just the rubric, if you will. God, such a teacher word. Not just the rubric, if you will, of the different levels of competition, but players that are on the bubble, their role. They have to know that their role is super important. It's vital, actually. Even if it's not to be the superstar. We have to communicate those things as well. Okay? And that's where my philosophy in Play Beautiful really comes to life, is communicating the value of every single person involved, every single stakeholder, if you will. Even if it's not to be the goal scorer or the starting quarterback or the cheerleader in front.
Well, and you say stakeholder, you're not just talking about athletes. The value of the parent as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. They need to know that their voice is important. And here's the thing about people, and this is going to go to psychology. Everyone just wants to be heard. So we could all tell the quote-unquote bad parent story. And God love them, they just want to be heard. Even if they're the one that's the thorn in your side. And Candace could speak to this. That's probably another show, though. But they just want to be heard. It's just human nature. And so we have to find a way to get that point across to them, that their child is valued, they are valued, and their roles, the role that they have and the role the child has, is vital to your program. Go ahead.
And honestly, too, like you say, the role in the program of the parent, but like the words that they're saying to their athlete at home, you want your big culture, and I know you're about to talk about culture. You want your culture to be so ingrained in your parents and in your athletes that the words that those parents are saying to their athletes at home is furthering the
Speaking
culture
same
of
language,
your
just
team.
solidifying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we could go on about that's just making people feel valued and being empathetic as a parent, and even if you're not a parent, being empathetic to the plight of being a parent. But I really want to get back to the things we need to nail when it comes to the big meeting, the big parent meeting, right? At the beginning of a season or of tryout season, regardless of when that may be. And so I really wanted to talk about what are some things that you always want, additional things, other than defining those different levels. What are some other things that you always wanted to nail when it came to the fine-tuning of your program, or the nuts and bolts? What are the things that you really wanted to nail in your meeting about those things?
I think just making sure that my parents also know the core values of my team.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
boy, I mean, there's a foundation of culture 101 right there. Is what are your values?
Right.
Yeah. And what's your? Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
What's your objective for their child? I mean, that's whenever we have kids, and whenever we put them in anything, I want to know the end game. And maybe that's just me, and I'm weird, but I want to know the end game. What do you have in store for my kid? Because if I agree with it, and I think it's in their best interest, then you got my support right out of the gate.
Right.
Right? And so, here's a question I would ask. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to
ahead.
say, for me, I think it's getting across that point that I'm going to push them, and they're going to work hard. But hopefully that's going to bear fruit. You know what I mean?
Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Right. Here's what it looks like. Here's how we do things.
Right.
Here's how we do things here. And so that's a great segue to what I was going to bring up, and that is everyone's going to talk about how great their program is. Right? I mean, you'd be a fool if you didn't, because you got to sell them. You've got to sell yourself to the parents and the players that you're trying to bring into your system, into your program.
Yeah.
But here's a question I would pose to anybody listening if you're a coach. I know that 99% of coaches, if I went to you and asked you for a practice plan, that you could probably produce one. At any given point in the week, you could probably produce a practice plan. But here, I'm going to ask you another question. How many of us could produce, at any point in the season, our yearly culture plan? And that's where I don't want to say the rubber meets the road, but I will say that culture is everything.
Important. Yeah.
It's everything. Because those are going to be the things that really impact a child or an athlete. Go ahead.
And y'all, I've done it both ways. Like, I've got, this husband over here who's always been really all about culture and leadership and how he's going to implement that in his team. And I've done it both ways. I've tried to I've tried to just push through without that plan, and it's tough. And so having that plan, it makes it so much better in the long run, for sure.
Yeah. So when I say culture is everything, we could talk successful football formations or offensive schemes or soccer philosophy of play. We could talk choreography for cheer. All of those things become secondary to culture if the athletes you have don't buy into who you are as a person and who you are going to help them become. what more could be important, or what could be more important rather. And so that's where we have to set aside time, not just to plan practice, and not just to create formation, and not to watch film. Those things are important too. But if you're not setting aside time to plan how you're going to impact the people you lead as a person, then I'm going to go ahead and say this, and it's going to hurt feelings, and that's all right, because I'm kind of used to that anyway. I just say it. Then you're not leading.
Yeah.
That's not leadership. The measure of a leader is creating more leaders. And no matter how much film you watch, that's not going to create a better leader. It's just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'll stop ranting. Candace, go ahead and keep talking about the things you want to nail in your preseason meeting, other than mission, vision, values, expectations, obligations.
Another thing I really like to put a lot of effort into it, because and like ahead of time, because I want to make sure that things are clear and concise, and just really I don't leave any room for interpretation. And so I even go as far as doing a presentation and having handouts, because so many parents are going to want to come back to that. So many parents are going to want to come back to that presentation or that handout, sometimes with links on it, to re-look over that information, to look at how much it's going to cost them, to look at how much time they're going to have to spend, to kind of weigh out whether they can commit to it.
So you're saying that the presentation you use in your meeting, you send that out?
I do.
To all the parents, right? That's a great idea.
All of the parents who have come to the interest meeting for tryouts, I send it out. I have links to the time commitments for if they're just going to be cheering sideline, the time commitments for if they end up being on the competition team, as well as all the financial commitments, the dates that are non-negotiable, camp.
Right.
We've got to have everybody there. Cheer's a little bit different than other sports in that we can't sub someone in. If we don't have a flyer, then we're without a flyer. We can't put a base in there.
Right.
And so it's really that is one of the biggest things in time commitment, is they have to realize that they really have to be there on specific things like choreography or camp. They can't miss that.
So I want to take this moment, if I can, to start moving us toward, and I've been flirting with it, but to start moving us toward the second point we wanted to talk about, which is incorporation. And I think something that if we're still talking about how communication leads to incorporation, then I think we can't leave out how in our preseason or pre-tryout meeting, we have to let them know what they're actually becoming a part of.
Right.
And give them the big picture of our program and what we want for their child at the end of this, the end game of this. And I mentioned that a second ago, but what do we really want that to look like? And offer them examples of what this has looked like in the past. And I like to refer to that as the legacy of the program, right? And so that can not just build belief in you as a coach and what you're capable of, but in the program itself and the people that those parents, child, are going to be surrounded by every single day, and know that, hey, this is what this program has done for other young women or men along the way, and this is what I can expect. Right? So what's how would you say that you've done that in the past to use your communication tools or your meeting to really drive that home, that incorporation part?
Yeah, I think it's just what we've already been talking about. I think that continuous, clear, concise communication is going to foster that incorporation. So that kind of sets the precedent for the entire season when you have your parent meeting and you have the very organized, clear expectations. They know that this is how the program is going to be ran, and that's what they're always going to get. I think it's important at that first meeting to start teaching your parents your core values as well. And so having those parents know exactly what the program looks like, what the core values are, what you're going to be ingraining into them at the times that you meet and talk about them. We call them family chats. That way the parents can know what their part is in the program. And then throughout the season, you can send home little blips that talk about maybe one of those core values or what it looks like in their lives right now, and give them maybe some talking points with their athletes.
Yeah. Do you have an example? Can you give us an example what that might have looked like?
Go past West Elm Street and turn left onto US 270 West.
Yeah, so my regular go-to example for a parent meeting is really talking about integrity. And in the last few years of coaching, I used the acronym FAMILY, and the Y in family was yardstick. And so leader by example is something that, almost every program I've ever ran was something that I kind of I talked about, that they should be a leader by example. And so yardstick, it just means that they are a leader by example. They're the measurement for what an athlete, a student should look like. And so one thing that I've told them over the years is, if you're a cheerleader in the community, there are so many people in that community who may recognize you. Those little kids that stand at the fence and watch you cheer, they know your face. They know what you look like. They may even know your name.
They probably even know your name.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And so I've always told them, it does not matter where you are at. You are representing that team. So whether you are in the little tables in the middle of a Sonic, or if you are at school, or if you have walked to your neighborhood playground, one of those kids is going to see you and recognize you. And so how do you want them to see you? You remember the moment when you were that little girl or little boy standing at the fence row looking at your
hero,
role model, your hero. And so how would you want little you to see that person? And so that's kind of the measurement that I've talked to him over the years. I've used the example, if you are at that playground sitting on the swings talking to your friends and using inappropriate language, and that little you sees you, what do you think that little you is going to want to do?
Right.
And so just really some self-reflection pieces there, I think.
Well, and the parental lens there this is really powerful to look at through the parental lens, because parents may not even consider that aspect or perspective of their child's role as a representative of your team.
Right.
Because they don't view their own child, perhaps they don't, maybe many do, and they get this part, but they don't view their child as perhaps being someone's hero or role model. and the brevity of their role on your
Right.
team or on any team.
You know, I think that's very true, and I think that's true honestly in any life, and not to get super religious on you here, but I think that's kind of all of our roles is
Yeah.
to make sure that we're leading by example. I mean, you know, the Bible teaches us that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it 1,000% does. And we're the pictures of what we are rather supposed to be the pictures of what we proclaim to be.
Right.
And if we, as our role on a sports team, if we are proclaiming to be a leader or a valuable member of an esteemed
Program.
team or program, then we very much have to be on at all times.
Right.
Now,
Well, and that actually plays into practice too. You know, that's the overall culture that we're building. You think about that. If you have to be on at all times, like when you walk into practice, you can't be off. Like you have to be ready to work hard
yeah.
at all times because we need everyone on that team working hard.
Yeah. The key cultural piece to this, the linchpin in that idea, is to get your athletes to a place where they're not quote unquote on or off.
Right.
Where that is
Right.
who they are. That's the key
The
to
ingrained.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the key to a successful culture. It's not a show
Right.
that they put on. It is really the posture of their heart and mind.
And that's what I really liked about our family chats. You know, I talked about that a while ago, family chats. And for us, family chats were just when we sat down as a team, as a family, and talked about our core values. The reason I say family chats is because our core values happen to spell out family. I know that's rather cliche, but we really were a family. And so we really are. It's Thanksgiving Day today, and I reached out to 3 past teams and told them that I'm still watching them and I'm still proud of them, and that I'm so proud to have been that part in their life. And so those family chats, I think, are another part of incorporation.
1,000%.
So what I love the most about family chats is not that I was teaching a lesson, because I don't really think that's what it should be. I loved that I could sit down with a thought and an idea in my mind with talking about maybe a specific core value and what that means and all of that, and every one of them would chime in and add to that and have their own piece. And I loved the communication piece in those family chats, because let's be honest, you can preach at someone all day, you can talk to someone all day. It's the same with your kids, right? But if they don't buy in and they don't understand it and they don't see the value in it, then what is it really going to play out?
Right, there's the incorporation. It's them synergizing with everything that your program is about, with the values that you're talking about, and then it's not just the parents being incorporated, right? It's the kids as well. But let's take it back to the idea of parental incorporation. So got the family chats, and we've just delivered a really great day with the athletes, and they've had a lot of ownership and empowerment, and then they take that into practice and have encouragement for one another, with one another, and throughout the team. And now, how do you get them to take that home?
Yeah, so that's where those little blurbs that I was talking about, like we can send out little blurbs about what we've done at practice, what we talked about, really bringing the parents into the conversation, and maybe challenge them.
Yeah.
What can you see in this realm and what we're talking about at home? Maybe we're talking about yardstick and being the measurement of a leader, right? So maybe when they get home, they need to be a leader in the house as well. Maybe they need to be a good example for their younger sibling, right? Maybe they need to teach that younger sibling to take responsibility for things, to help around the house, to do their chores, to set the table or help cook, something like that. And so taking those things and just really implementing it in the household so that it becomes a part of their life and ingrained in, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and so again, this is another key aspect of what building a true holistic culture is really all about, and that's that it's not something that they turn on and off when they walk into the door to your environment, to the environment that you facilitate, but rather it's just a part of who they are, right? That's what real impact and influence is, and that's what real leadership is throughout a really successful culture that chooses to build the whole person, right? And so
your parents should be seeing that at home.
1,000%.
And so your parents should kind of secondhand realize what the culture of your program is, even without you telling them, because they should be seeing and recognizing that in the household, right?
And not just seeing it, but reinforcing it, supporting it, encouraging it.
Yes.
And I would even go further and say asking more of it in the other aspects of that, since we're talking about youth sports, of that child's life.
Well, and let's can we talk about kind of timeline on something like this in a program? Because I know a lot of people are probably listening and they're like, well, how do you do that? Because it's not instantaneous.
Where are the minutes?
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I was just thinking back, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago when I was handed a new program. And you and I sat down and we were talking about building that culture for that program, and we talked through it. I made a lot of notes. We started planning our family chats, all those things.
Pretty meticulous.
Yeah. And so the front planning and the front loading for that is you really have to think through a bunch of things. But then also, like, they're kids. You know, it doesn't matter what age you're coaching. They're kids, and so they have to be reminded. They have to have it all the time. It can't just be something that you sprinkle in every now and then. It needs to be the seasoning for the whole season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so another thing I did, other than always trying to tie it in, is I got on Canva and made some posters with the core values and what those meant. And we had one in the gym. We had one in the locker room. We had one in my classroom. So when we met in my classroom, it was there all the time, right? And so they always, I could ask them what each letter stood for and what that meant. And that's what we started our season with. We started by like really talking through what each of those things actually mean.
Defining it for them.
Define it, yeah. And it didn't matter if they'd been on the team the season before, because we have new people, and the returners had so much insight for the new people, and they had gained so much insight and knowledge within the year that they now had new knowledge and new realizations of how this was actually working within their team.
So I love how you tied that in, because you mentioned anyone listening would be wondering, one, how often do I do this, or should I do this? Two, where do I find that time? And then maybe it's not the third question, but it's certainly going to be in the top 10. What are the returners, quote unquote, going to get from this? Don't I have to start over all the time? Mm-hmm. Well, yes and no. I love that you mentioned the more you do this, the more you build culture, which should be on a daily basis in some way, shape, or form. Your family chats were probably once a week or something like that, or maybe once every 2 weeks. A big, or not big, but a longer duration and more information wielding meeting might not happen every day, but once a week or once every 2 weeks. But regardless, even for the ones that have been on the team before, it's got to be enriching for them and giving them deeper insight, like you said. And here's where you can scale your culture, not just down for the new ones, but up for your returners, and that's ask more. That's how you make it even more enriching for the ones that have returned. You ask more of them as an example, as facilitators, and with maybe a small group to present on some of these things, right? And so now your incorporation is becoming deeper for individuals and groups of your athletes.
Yeah, for those of you that are teachers, especially in Arkansas, that's a 4 on the test. On the, what's it called? Test?
It used to be
I don't know
test.
what it's
Who
called
knows
now.
what it is
I don't
now?
know. Anyways, student led. That's your student led right there.
There it is.
Another thing too is, he's talking about, you don't always have enough time for a whole family chat. Maybe you just have a few minutes, but that building that in doesn't mean that you have to have a whole sit-down conversation and lesson or have them teaching something. Building that in means that as they're learning these things, you're now incorporating it into your language. And so into your practice language, and you're noticing your athletes incorporating it into your practice language. So like in cheerleading, when you have someone leading in a stunt group and you hear them incorporating that language instead of fussing at each other, that's a win.
1,000%. I love that you mentioned that it might get incorporated in a stunt group, so for other sports outside of cheerleading, there are 1,000,001 ways to incorporate the instillment, the solidification of your cultural pieces, your values, your standards, your expectations within drills even. So something that, and I don't want to give away too much because I do have a business where I want to actually try and get these ideas to people. But one way we do that in the environments that I coach is to embed those things within drills. So, as an example, we would have a scrimmage. And so we might play, let's say, 5 versus 5. So I coach soccer, so it would be 5v5. And I've even come up with ways for football coaches and basketball coaches to do this that I've shared with coaches. And so rather than keeping score, they accumulate points so that we still create a competitive environment. We will accumulate points through the demonstration of the cultural piece that we're focusing on that week. So if our focus is, let's say, on positivity, then any verbal or nonverbal encouragement accumulates points. And I'd have one of my assistant coaches keeping track of this and tracking the points that various players accumulate for their team. And then we would recognize as a way to catch that athlete being great and to be an example and to demonstrate that, we would catch them at the end of practice and say, hey, Susie scored this many points today for her team and they won, and here's what she did. She did these 3 nonverbal things and she said these 4 verbal things and demonstrated positivity.
It's like Katja being good. Do you
It's
remember
right.
that?
Yes.
Katja being good.
Yeah. So.
All right.
So we've sent out all these great messages to parents and let them know what's going on within the program, how they can support that at home. And if we've done our job correctly, if we've been a great leader and we've tried to make or help rather all of the athletes that we serve become better leaders, then parents should be seeing that at home, not just at home, but in most of, if not all, we pray, right, that we've done that we've or help facilitate that all of these children's behaviors should be modeling the things that we value. Not just that we value, but the things in our program that we value. And so, what should we be hoping that the parents do next? Buy in, right? Buy into everything about our program, everything about us, and that we say we're about, and that we're trying to do for their child. So, in your experiences, what has parent buy-in look like? How has it manifested itself?
For me, parent buy-in, the first thing I see is they start realizing that everything you're doing is for the best of their child and all the children on the team. And so they start asking, how can I help?
That's a big question, right? And that's the question that every coach wishes that every parent would ask. How can I help you? Right?
Yeah.
And so we want them to come to a realization, right? That the parent and the coach actually have a partnership.
Yeah.
But the hardest thing, and in my experience, I want you to talk a little bit to this and what this has looked like for you. But in my experience, that has been probably the thing that is, I don't know about toughest to accomplish, but it's certainly a challenge subjectively for some parents, because what we do that is in every child's best interest, in the team's best interest, they might not see that as being in their individual child's best interest.
No, and that's hard. In my opinion, that's probably the hardest thing. That their child is just one piece of the puzzle, and because they're the parent, and we're the same way with our kids.
Everyone is.
And we try to put on a coaching lens, but it's still hard because we're the parent. But it's hard to see that overall picture because the parent doesn't know every individual child on that team like the coach does, and how they fit together and how they work together. And so that's really hard. And we're sitting here and we're talking and we're giving, I guess, advice based on our experiences. But let me be honest, there's a lot that I've gotten wrong. And there's been a lot of years where I feel like I've gotten it wrong. And it's just like any program, you learn what's right by doing something that doesn't work, right?
Trial and error.
And so, one thing that I've noticed over the years, if I just honestly reflect back on the over 25 years that I've coached, is that there are many times where I'm good at rapport. I'm good at rapport with my athletes, and there's so many times where I've gotten that piece right, or I've gotten the teaching core values right, or even if they were not voiced, you know what I mean, or teaching skills or something like that. But it's the hardest thing to get the parent buy-in right.
Yeah, it is, because let's just admit it's tough to watch your kid fail.
Right.
But sometimes, and this is for many parents, there's always going to be a parent that's like, you know what, my child needs to fall on their face. And those are sometimes few and far between.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and from a coach's perspective, that's absolutely what some need, is to fail so they can learn how to best respond to failure. Who hasn't failed? And that's where us getting it wrong, here's the best thing. I want every coach to get in the mirror and actually practice saying this, because the more humility you can show now, it gets easier as you go. And I want you to get in the mirror and practice saying, hey, I was wrong, and I need you to have a little grace with me. If you can get to the place where you can get in front of your team's parents and the players. It's so important that you also acknowledge this in front of your athletes, that you're human and you're going to make mistakes. But the most important part is that you're always trying. You're always trying to be better. That's how you get buy-in. If they see you trying to do right by their child, trying to teach their child, trying to push their child to be the best version of themselves, and that you're also modeling that, and that you're not perfect and you acknowledge that you're not perfect, that's probably one of the most important pieces there, is that you acknowledge you're not perfect and you don't put on an air around them, and that you're just real with it. Then that's how you best gain buy-in.
Yeah, and that just goes back to the lead by example thing that I was talking about as well. Like, if you're doing that, then you're setting an example for them, right? To acknowledge their weaknesses or their faults or their, you know what I mean? That they can be wrong too. And so a lot of times our athletes kind of mirror us.
Absolutely, they do. That's how you drive home culture, is you demonstrate first and then hope that they will mirror. But I have experienced this firsthand with parents that, boy, were they not happy with me. But then I just continued to be who I really am and show them every day, demonstrating to them that I do have their child's best interest in mind, acknowledging when I mess up and that I'm trying to be better, and then showing that I am being better. And I've had those same parents who wanted to have it out with me and have at me after a game come and hug me at the end of the year meeting, okay, and apologize. And my response is, there's no need to apologize. We're both doing the best we can. What better message can you drive home to signify buy-in and partnership with a parent than those two acknowledgments, right? So what's the take-home message, if you had one, that you want everybody to leave this episode with for communication and cooperation and buy-in?
I don't know. I really love what you just said about partnership. I mean, I think that's definitely the word that I would leave with for the buy-in piece, is partnership. Parents have to realize that you're on the same team.
Same team.
Yeah. As far as all of the things, though, I think that the driving thing, other than leading by example, that's all my LBE, lead by example, is just consistency in every single one of them.
Big one.
Whether it's for the initial piece of communication, for that middle piece, for what integration, is that what we called it? Incorporation, sorry. And then the last piece with buy-in, I think all of them come back to consistency. You have to be consistent.
Right. Not perfection.
Not perfect, but consistent. Yeah.
All right. Well, love, thanks for, one, keeping me awake while I drive. And for being on our podcast. And happy Thanksgiving to you and our family and everybody that's going to hear this. You're going to hear it after Thanksgiving, but we hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. And coaches, the next car ride you have, maybe record a podcast together. See what happens.